Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back, Cindy, to episode 4 of Mission Control. This is a podcast in which we talk to nonprofits about being nonprofit, all the great things and a little bit of the not so great things, just to hear the nuts and bolts of what happens within nonprofit organizations. And today we are going to be, I'm excited to welcome on my friend Andrew Brewer, the executive director of Men Making a Difference, that's based here in Lansing, Michigan. I know there's a lot of Men Making a Difference organizations across the country, but we're talking about the one in Lansing, the one that I know. And I'm excited to hear his story. But we're also going to have a theme of mentorship as part of that. And I know that his organization really focuses on that. So there we go. Mentorship. Cindy, how do you feel about mentorship?
Throwing it out there. I think it's amazing. And one of my my favorite bosses said to me that he had a philosophy of coaching, teaching, and mentoring. And that meant that you were always meant to be coaching, teaching, and mentoring the people that are coming behind you, but you're also meant to be taking in coaching, teaching, and mentoring from people that are in front of you. And that was profound to me because it kept me hungry that I was supposed to keep learning. Even if I was at the top of some organization, I needed to keep learning some way or finding someone that would challenge me, but also that I kind of had this responsibility to the people coming up behind me to mentor them so that they could come up and learn some new skills. It's amazing when you think about it like that. And there are so many nonprofits that I have a heart for just because they're mentoring youth. And I think that that's huge. You think about Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You think about after school clubs and church groups. You think about teachers. You think about, athletic coaches and the difference that these people make in the lives of children. And sometimes those kids may not have someone telling them how great they are or have someone that's a great role model. So it's huge. I know locally you think of Big Brothers, Big Sisters and the YMCA and so many other great groups that are doing this service. So Paul, tell me who's mentored you that's made a difference.
Well, it's funny because it seems like when I was younger, I didn't have the key mentor that maybe a lot of folks, maybe some youth don't have it. And most of my mentors popped in when I was a little bit older into college and into my adult world. But, like you mentioned, it is about giving back. And so that's one of the things that I've done in my career is to be able to give back to high schoolers, to college age folks, and even colleagues in my sphere. In fact, I'm a mentor right now for a young up and coming entrepreneur, and I meet with them every week, and we talk about successes and some of the, I don't want to call them failures, but some of the things that may have not gone well, but just trying to, so they can feel their way. And I think that that's the case with a lot of organizations. You mentioned a lot of great ones, and unfortunately for what we do here, we've worked with several of those folks, and you can't really just put a number on the immense amount of influence that they have on the kids. And a lot of it turns back, and because those kids learn a lot, and they're able to take what they learn and become mentors themselves. So it's kind of one of those gift that keeps on giving type deal with that. So
I'm wondering, we have a very special guest today, and I'll let you share that in a minute, but I have questions for people that kind of oversee mentorship organizations, because I would assume that there's always a need for volunteers that, quality volunteers that meet the needs of the child. But I'm also wondering how mentorship has gone during COVID. Now that we can't specifically meet up in person, how people have changed the way they're mentoring.
Well, I think that's a wonderful segue, and I think it's time to bring on our special guest, Andrew Brewer, from Men Making a Difference. So after this little momentary break, we're going to meet with Andrew.
Yay.
And there he is, Andrew Brewer.
There he is.
Executive Director of Men Making a Difference. How you doing, Andrew?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for making the time. But before we start getting into, as we call it, the nuts and bolts of nonprofit work here for your organization, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to create Men Making a Difference or develop it in the way it is today?
It started, to tell you the truth, it was, I hate to use the word accident, but it wasn't planned. We started with a thought, me and other guys, we got tired of just sitting around, just going to a bar and just hanging out and just going to work. We wanted something that was useful, that was tangible, and something that we could be proud of. So when I came up with the concept, I wanted to just feed the community. So I saved up $300, and before I know it, we had a small picnic at Hawk Island, and that was the beginning of Men Making a Difference, and it started developing. Of course, we didn't know what we were doing, but each of the guys, what was so cool about it, each of them, after they seen me get a 300, they finally they chipped in $40 a piece. So we had a small gathering, and behold us, we did not know that would turn into Man Making a Difference and turn into Family Community Cookout, where the year before last, due to COVID, but we had over 1,500 people. So it shows you how, what I liked about it best is that it came from the grassroots. It wasn't no fancy organization. We didn't know about board members. We had to learn everything that we wanted to learn. So we really came up and from the ground up, which is beautiful.
Meeting a need. I love it.
So Andrew, when you developed Men Making a Difference, like you said, it's a grassroots thing. How was the perception? I mean, other than the fact that you got a group of, how was that perception of what you were doing, like perceived? I guess that's that's the only word I can think of. How was the perception perceived in the community for what you guys were doing?
It was something different. You got to realize that we seen a void, especially in the Black community. We seen a void that wasn't there. They had a organization called Black Men Incorporated, but they were mostly businessmen, all of them, college educated, but we didn't see any men working in the community that we could relate to. The only men that we seen working in the community were football coaches. We didn't see the men, cooking for the community, going to the nursing homes or going to the elderly, like Friendship Manor, and connecting with them, or just giving out hot dogs on the street because that was cool to do. We didn't see that. So we were brought up seeing that, but we didn't see that anymore. So that was our main focus. And once the community seen, it wasn't a big trust there at first, because a lot of times when you start something, people wondering, what's the hidden agenda? Why are you doing this? But we started that in 2007. And before you know it, the city council caught on, Boys and Girls caught on, Davies Project, a lot of the community, and it became more diverse. At first, it was mainly in the Black community. And as it got diverse, it became much, much better and much more reaching more people. And so that was the blessing of it. And the perception, the way we're perceived, people appreciated us.
So is this an all volunteer organization?
Oh yes, nobody gets paid. Yeah, that was one of the best things we wanted to do. We felt obligated to give back to our community.
And I know, Cindy, you had a question about the volunteers.
Yes, I'm just wondering about your pool of volunteers, where they come from, and if they're meeting the needs for how many kids that you see are searching for mentorship, and how the volunteers have continued to provide mentorship through COVID.
Now, COVID has brought a obstacle, of course. One of the things we used to be in Boys and Girls Club and mentor there. Of course, that changed, but our mentoring was a little more unorthodox. What a lot of things we did was we believe the strongest part of the community is the family. So a lot of things that we would do that we start. One of our first, like we would do fundraiser, car washes, sell dinners. But what would we do is that we would involve the entire family, like we would as much as possible. So we would have the children out there, and the parents would be out there also. Because our goal was to produce that family dynamics and then encourage it. If you have a strong community, you usually find strong families behind it. If you have a weak community, the family structure is usually weak. So that's a big plus for us, and we still do that today. We just gave away in December. We gave away food for 300 people, and a lot of the volunteers, of course, had their families with them.
That's profound.
I know it is.
So,
huge. How hard is it as a full volunteer organization? How hard is it to get the word out about what you're doing?
With at first it was very hard, but with our strength, and since we've been around since 2007, it becomes much more easier. I mean, it's a lot easier than what it was. At first, it was very hard just to maintain, just for the men to buy into what we were doing, and also when you talk about mentoring, I want you to know once you have to realize the men. One thing I always like, the soldiers that you're working with, you have to utilize them in the best way. And so they have to be equipped for what you want. So we didn't have we wanted to start out, mentoring with these young men, have them grow up and groom them. But we didn't have those type of men that would be committed with that. That's something you have to be committed to. You have to do it at least consistently. And so what we want to do is you want to utilize everyone to their best capability. And so the route we went was best for us.
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead, Cindy.
I was just going to say, how wide is your reach? Is it just the Lansing area, or do you serve some people that are outside of the Lansing area as well?
Just outside Hope, Mason, East Lansing. Yeah, so the surrounding areas. Yes.
Do you have a vetting process? I mean, when it comes to your volunteers, how do you you were just talking about making sure that you have the right people in place. What is your like process of that?
Well, we do background check, and of course we do reference checks. We do that. But most of it, if a lot of them, we do that with our core group of volunteers. That's with the parents. I mean, that's usually our biggest winner because they're already connected with their own children. But as far as the men that we have in our group, we do the sex background, and we do all the backgrounds that we need to keep the children safe.
Right. How is working
sex offender
in the community? How has it helped you? What is the feeling that you get and you see that the volunteers receive when they're paying it forward to someone?
Oh, that's good, and it feels very good. But we had one goal in mind. We wanted to make volunteer not something that you brag about, not something that you say, oh, I did this, but we wanted to make it part of our everyday life. It was part of life. Basically, because you volunteer, you don't get a cookie. You're doing what you're supposed to for living life on this earth. So giving back, we feel like we try to produce around the people around us that it was, you're just paying it forward for the life that's given to you.
Yeah.
And so it makes it more simpler that way.
Makes a lot of sense. So I know that when you developed this program, this organization, and we're talking a lot about mentorship, and I know that that's one of the offshoots or one of the main tenets that you guys live by at Men Making a Difference. But were you mentored? How did you become in this situation of being the mentor of the mentors here? Tell us a little bit more about your history with that.
Oh yeah, coming where I come from, my father had committed suicide when I was 13, and he was our king at that time. He was a great father. He taught us a lot. Being a black family, we had golf clubs at 9 years old. He was that type of father. Riding bikes. He was a family man. So when we lost him, I lost a lot. So what happened is that I went astray, started getting in trouble. But I had mentors around me. You got to realize during this time when I was growing up, especially in the black community, the community, this was for the crack epidemic hit. The families were strong. The men were strong in the community. They were proud men, and so the men at that time didn't have any organizations. You had the football that was stable in the community, but you also had men who, even though they didn't have organizations, they would take responsibility when they seen a child in need. And so I had that also, a guy named Ricky Middlebrook. So, we would go to Sexton track meet. Sexton was big at that time, and high school sports was big, and he just took that time out. Track meets were big. The track meets you would see both sides of the stands filled back in them days. So sports was part of the community. You had fashion shows. So I would go through all these things, these events, and they were community events. So during that time, even though we didn't have, we weren't associated with like Big Brother, Big Sister, no organizations like that. You just connected with a person in the community, and that usually happened. All my friends had mentors, and they didn't really stress mentorship. It was just a friend at that time. And so that helped me out drastically. It really did.
I'm so thankful that you shared your story. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. I'm wondering if you're seeing similar stories, or if you could share a success story, or maybe you could share how the kids are reacting, or the positive things that have come from some of the kids that have received some of the mentorship and been guided in the right way. Tell us some successes that you've seen.
Yeah, I've seen a success. I've seen a young man. We had connected one of our partners with Pro Styles Barbershop. They were right on Jolly. And I seen this young man started back in 2007, and they would be out there washing cars. And the thing about it, they were raising cars. We was washing cars for the cookouts to feed people. And so we did gardening. We would help with Averill Wood. So we was doing a lot of things they weren't used to. But this young man came up to me not long ago and just said how he appreciated just giving back, because he had got in trouble at a young age, and he thought giving back was a punishment because the courts made him do volunteer work. And so we didn't want our young people to think as working in their community as a punishment, but it was something that was an asset, not a liability. So once they get that connection that it is that is something that's good, something they're supposed to, they become more productive. And even if they go astray, that's something that they're going to remember and they won't forget. He still has his struggles, but he says that part of his life is something that was stable at that time, and that he falls back on those memories. So those are good stories when we hear those.
Those are good stories. So with now as an organization such as yours, you have to work. You brought it up earlier about working with community partners. What community
Yes.
partners? I mean, I know I think you mentioned the Boys and Girls Club. Prior to
Yes.
COVID, you were
Prior
working
to
with
COVID.
them for what was it? An after school program, or what kind of program
After
was?
school
Were you
program, yes.
okay? So, what other
Yeah.
community partners have
After
you
school.
found to partner with to help you with your mission to get the word out about what you're doing? You know,
The South Side, I think the South Side Center over on the South Side um, they're one of our great partners. The Davies Project, um, Big Brothers Big Sister, they've been they was one of our first connections with the cookout. Even the city council, they helped us out a lot on anything that we need help with as far as when we're doing programming. Pro Styles, right there. That's where we did our car washes, and the young people would learn some work ethic also, things like that. So building those relationships is not just a one-way street, but you learn to support each other because you can't get through it by yourself. So those partners are huge.
Can you tell us about maybe some of the needs that you may have? I don't know if you have a need to find more mentors, or if you need potentially people to make donations, but I can imagine that people will hear your story and watch the podcast and want to know more information. So I'm wondering if you can just share what your immediate needs are, and then maybe share where you hope to take your nonprofit in the next few years.
Our most mainly need, of course, donation and volunteers are always a big help. And one of the things that we want to do, we do want to develop where um, we connect with young, especially young men. What we're finding out is that in our community that we live in, the young men have such a struggle. They don't have a lot of the fathers are absent many times, especially in the Black community. I think they did a statistic was 1.5 million men locked up. And so when you have that type of that many men locked up, there's going to be there's going to be a problem in that community. It's going to be a problem. So those are some of the things that we want to address. Is that just the to address the needs of young men in our community. And I want to mention out was that I can't even think of the mentoring program right now. But anyway, to address the young men, their needs, develop them as from young men to men. That's one of the needs that we need to address, and one of the things we will address in our future.
well, that's amazing. So, how many years has been? You said since 2007. Is that when you said you established it?
2007.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
And every summer you have a cookout, and I went. What was it? The last two, obviously prior to COVID, because you didn't have one this past summer. But the two, and it was amazing. It was amazing what you guys had put on. And so I just give you a lot of credit. It blew me away when I was able to see what you guys were doing there at the park. Blew me away. So, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanna talk about? Whether it's mentorship, whether it's about a little bit more about your organization. Anything else you want to get us to touch on?
I just like to one of the things we hope, one of the challenges we see is getting young men involved in the communities, especially the young men in their 20s and 30s. We would love to see them start just learning appreciate, volunteer, learn to giving back, leave the clubs alone a little bit, and just and appreciate fatherhood, appreciate that privilege of because some of the 30-year-olds we see right now, that's a grown man. You're not a child anymore. And so we want to see them, pull up their pants and be part of our community and just be men. And so that's some of the things that we try to influence. One of the things we try to, if they see us working in the community, hopefully they think it's cool, and it'll carry on. And that's about it. Thank you.
How can people get in touch with you, Andrew? If they want more information, or if somebody wants to make a donation, can you share your email, your website, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Our email is manmakingthedifference@hotmail.com, and our website is mmad.us, and you can definitely catch us on Facebook, right at Men Making a Difference.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We enjoyed having another chat with you and learning a little bit more about your story, your journey. And hey, I do recommend everybody go to their website, go to their Facebook page, find out what they're doing. And if you do have an opportunity, I just brought it up, please stop by their cookout that they have every summer. You looking forward to it this year, Andrew? You got all the plans ready?
We have it. It's always the second Saturday of July. So if God's willing, we will have it if we can do it safely. Second Sunday of July at Benjamin Davis Park.
Thank you for your service, Andrew. You're doing a great thing for the community.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll see you next time.
All
See you next time, Cindy. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this edition of Mission Control, and see you around.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.